Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have two incredible guests here, Adam and Susan. You guys are both major pieces of the success of Siri, which is, now with the AI wave we have today, that was like the foundation of what's possible in this space. And you guys both have put a lot of effort into making that into a reality, and millions of people have benefited from it. And so I'm excited to have you guys here and to get into your story. Thanks for coming.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Awesome. So this is the first time you guys are meeting, which is really exciting. So, did you guys think that this day would come, that you would be meeting each other?
Hadn't really thought about it, actually. Of course, I know your name. I talk about you in my Siri speech that I do. So
Yeah, same. It's nice to meet you. I've read a lot. I've seen some of your talks online.
Oh, okay.
Nice to be face to face, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Screen to screen or whatever.
What did you guys expect each other would be like? Did you ever think about that?
Not really,
Yeah. No, it's nice to share the early roots of Siri in some form. So it brings us together.
Yes.
Definitely. So Adam, when you were building Siri, what were you envisioning? Like, how are you envisioning the voice would play into the as a part of it? Like, were you envisioning somebody like Susan being the voice of it? How are you thinking about this voice aspect?
Yeah, that's actually a funny story. Probably not ever reported. The original Siri, which was a startup, and we launched a free app in the App Store, it had no voice, so no voice output. And you could talk to it, but the screen would respond with whatever information you asked. So if you said, "Find me restaurants nearby," it would show here are restaurants and give you a list. And this was actually something I had an argument with Steve Jobs. We argued on all sorts of things. And sometimes I look back and say, he was right. And other times I'm like, I still think I'm right.
Yeah.
But in this case, I made the case that Siri shouldn't have a voice in its default mode. Of course, when you're in a car, hands-free, eyes busy, it makes all the sense in the world. But I'm like, the eyes are so powerful at being able to consume information quickly. Why would I want it just reading to me what's already on the screen? I can read so much faster than any robotic voice. So that was my going in approach. I will say that this is one where I say he was right. Siri's voice was a huge part of why I think it was so popular. I didn't, from a functional point of view, it didn't add that much. But from an emotional point of view, it changed everything. So,
Yeah.
So I wasn't really imagining Siri's voice yet. I was, in fact, kind of arguing it against it. And luckily, we had Steve Jobs who knew what he was doing. So,
Interesting.
Susan, what did you think you were doing when you were recording these vocals and stuff for an interesting kind of project? What did you think it was going to turn out to be?
I have worked for a messaging company for over 30 years, and I was doing the original recordings through them. And it was basically, I've got a script like this thick of pages and pages of crazy sentences that were created just to get all of the sound combinations in the language. So many times the phrases and sentences made absolutely no sense. Phrases like cow hoist in the tub hut today. Poetry. So it was kind of challenging because it was technically it needed to be consistent, not too many ups and downs, so that when they extracted the different sounds and diphthongs and syllables and put them back together, that they could match. So it was interesting work, and it took a long time to read all of those sentences.
Adam, what was your first impression when you heard the voice of Siri? Like, what were you thinking? Like, what were you thinking about this at that time? Like, did you think the voice was going to be a crucial aspect of the success of it and going to be a great thing for the product? Like, what did you think of the voice?
Well, I found out about the fact that I was the voice by a fellow voice actor who emailed me and said, "Hey, we're playing around with this new iPhone 4S. Isn't this you?" And I went, "What?" So it was a surprise for me. So it was a kind of a double-edged sword for me because I was very flattered that it was my voice was chosen, but the fact that I didn't know about it and had never been paid for it was a little uh, unsettling.
Yeah. From my perspective, the hard part at the time was getting Siri to be able to understand pretty open language understanding. So the components,
Right.
for instance, speech recognition to understand the words,
Yes.
that existed. There were dictation systems where you could say words and it would just paste it into your document, but it didn't understand the words.
Right.
So speech recognition existed. Text to speech, meaning the voice output, existed in various forms. And but for me, the part that I was most focused on and worried about and fretting about was if someone can say pretty much anything, you need to be able to actually respond intelligently and make it seem like it understands to do the right task or to at least respond in the right way. So for me, the core of my attention and my focus was what are all the things people are going to say and all the thousands of combinations. People don't realize how hard it is to understand language. I'll give you an example. If you ask Siri, book a 4-star restaurant in Boston, immediately everyone listening knows exactly what I mean.
Mm.
But for a machine, it's tricky because, first of all, the word book not only means make a reservation, that there's the physical book,
Right.
and book is the name of a city in the United States. And
Really?
Star is the name of a city in the United States. And there are 13 Bostons in the United States. So which city are you even talking about? Book, Star, or one of the 13 Bostons? If
Right.
you say Star Restaurant, that's the name of a restaurant. But we're not talking about a restaurant name. There's so many combinations of even words that we know to put them together in different forms that the understanding part is much, much more complicated than
Right.
anyone realizes. So that was my focus. As I mentioned, I wasn't too focused on which voice. I'm like, I just wanted to understand at all.
Right.
Of course, once Siri came out and it became a cultural phenomenon, and partly due to the voice, Apple and others started to think much more seriously about what are the attributes we want, what's the features, what it clearly was important. But at that time, we had so many other things to just worry about the scale of it.
Right.
So that's where my head was at the time when Siri launched.
Makes sense.
Susan, what did you think of the name of Siri?
The name Siri?
Yeah.
I didn't really think anything about it. I thought it was a catchy name, easy to say, easy to hear and understand. But I really didn't do too much thinking about it. For me, it was such a weird thing to have my voice just be out there so much. And it was of concern to me because I wanted to keep doing my voiceover work. And so having my voice be totally ubiquitous, was a little concerning. It ended up not being a big deal. And actually, Siri gave me a second career because I started doing speaker events and talking about Siri and how the recordings were done and all of that sort of thing. So it's been good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Adam, what did you think was the potential of Siri when it came out and the voice, you heard Susan's voice, you heard what you created, and it was this talking type interface? What did you think the potential of it was going to be at that time?
Oh, well, I always had a dream for a conversational interface. We've spoken before, so you know that my first version of Siri was actually implemented in 1993.
Wow.
A year before I saw a first web browser. So Siri dates back to pre-web. And I said, someday everyone will have an assistant as a way to access all of the content and services around the world. And I said, I wanted to be able to say, I want to know this, or I want to do that. And Siri's job would be to understand your request, break it down into subparts, route it to the right machines around the world, aggregate responses, present it to the user, learn, and help the user get the job done. So I still believe the power of Siri is enormous. I think it will be bigger if done right. The conversational metaphor could be bigger than the web, bigger than mobile computing. The issue was, if you look back when the iPhone came out, it had 10 or 15 great apps. But what changed everything was when the App Store emerged, right? So with Siri, that was always the idea. That was the idea Steve Jobs and I talked about. We said, we'll start with the 15 or so apps that Apple has built, because, it was a secret project, really. We didn't have developers. No one knew about it. So stocks and maps and weather and reminders, all of that. But then the plan was always to open up an app store so that every piece of content and service, whether it's in an app, whether it's in a website, whether it's on your phone, or whether it's on someone else's computer around the world, you would be able to interact with it both graphically, with language, and with combinations of the two. So I still hugely believe in that potential. I still believe that the full vision, the full dream of Siri has not yet been realized. And so that's hopefully for Apple or some other entrepreneur out there to make it happen.
Is there anything you're seeing currently that's kind of similar to what you envision for this full potential?
We're not really there yet. I think there are three things missing. So first of all, I love large language models, incredibly powerful language understanding and language generation. We did not have that technology in the early days, but three things are missing from everything I've seen. Number one, I really want a system that can know things and do things. That was the original defining statement. Some people will say, well, aren't agentic AI things able to do? I'm like, yes, a little bit in simplistic ways, but it's not enough. It's not to the level that's needed. I think we need to have the right mix of graphical interface and language. Today, all the LLM AI systems are just like a chatbot. Chatbots are great, text chains are great, but there's a reason why almost every website and every app has a graphical interface. And Siri was always able to combine the two, right? You could be looking and speaking together. And the third is we need that app store. You need to have a two-sided marketplace. The reason that the web took off, the reason that mobile took off was that consumers could consume it and developers, every business in the world can play. And if you think about the ChatGPTs and others that are becoming the new de facto search engine, there's no way a business can plug in with their brand, with their experience, their expertise, and there's no way users can select from the brands they know and trust. So those are three things that were always in the plan for Siri, that even today I have not seen anyone do it at a level needed. And if it can be done, I think it will take this whole paradigm, conversational AI, to the next level.
Well, Susan, it sounds like Adam has a good idea here. Maybe you're going to reprise your role.
Well, I would love to do that because they've changed the Siri voice a couple of times since it was me. I was the original voice. And the thing that I miss about the original Siri is she had attitude. She was really funny. The very first time I spoke to Siri, I said, "Hi, Siri, what are you doing?" And she very disgustedly answered, "I'm talking to you." Okay. But I've heard a lot of people comment on the fact that that was kind of fun, that they would talk to Siri just to see what she would say. So,
Susan, do you want to talk a little more like Siri and tell Adam how happy you were that he created it and you got to be involved in this?
Adam, I am so very grateful. Pay me more.
Well, I think the reason why Susan didn't get paid so much is there
Mhm.
wasn't a direct contract, in my understanding. This is a
Right.
great chance to
Yeah.
ask between Apple and Susan. So Susan's voice was recorded for another product, really an
Right.
off-the-shelf
Another
product,
company.
and it
Yeah.
was actually her voice has been used in many other places. So
Yes.
the Microsoft Ford Sync car sounded exactly like Siri, etc. So
Yeah.
it was really sort of through an intermediary where she recorded a voice for a third party. Apple loved the voice and bought the voice, but it wasn't directly through through Susan. And the reason they had to change the voice is they said, oh my gosh, the voice is so important, but other products are using the same voice. We need something original.
Mm.
So I often say there's a famous Siri and a rich Siri in every language pair, male and female. Susan is the famous Siri. So afterwards, they're like, well, we need a voice, and it needs to be the only voice that can only be used for us and for no one else. And they had to probably buy out the career of someone. So
Hmm.
someone got a lot
Hopefully
of
they did
money,
that.
I
Yeah.
believe,
Hopefully.
but they're not allowed to go out and say that they're the Siri voice. That's one of the
Right.
conditions.
Right. Yeah.
And so Susan is now the famous voice. Everyone
Yeah.
knows she's the
Yeah.
original voice of
Whatever good
Siri.
that does me.
Well, yeah, hopefully, as you said, it leads to a second career. You can transfer some of your fame into
Yeah. Yeah.
money. But it's an interesting relationship, which I never would have thought about or predicted that there's the original famous voice, which started it all and really gave us this opportunity. But then Apple had to go and find other voices so they could make sure it was unique.
Hmm.
And as I said, that's probably the rich voice. I don't know the contract, but
Certainly richer.
yeah, richer because it needed to buy someone out
Right.
for their career. That
Right.
you're not allowed to work for any other voice company. I
Yeah.
know Susan is not only the voice of Siri, she has so many other voices for different characters, she can work for many, many places. This other Siri's voice can only do Siri for the rest of their career.
Yeah. I had spoken, actually, I did a FaceTime with the Alexa voice.
Oh, nice.
And she has not revealed her name, but some guy wrote a book about it and mentioned her name, so she's out there. But yeah, we talked about how weird it was, and the fact that she did get paid. But how do you pay a person enough for their entire career? So I don't think she got paid enough. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
I hope all of those who did get the direct lifetime contract, I hope they found a way to
I hope
pay
they get
enough.
a good
Apple
agent.
certainly has enough cash to pay
Yes,
someone for a
yeah.
career worth.
I hope they all had good agents.
In hindsight, though, like, would you take the path that you have today, where you're like the famous Siri and Adam's
Oh, interesting.
contact, or would you have taken the can't talk about it? That's my whole career, not doing these other things.
I guess I'd rather be the famous one and still able to do other stuff. Yeah,
Huh,
because I really love my work, so I like to do as many diverse things as possible. So
it worked out.
it did. It did.
Perfect. Good question.
Well, my philosophy is that, there are some things that, over which you have absolutely no control and you can't possibly change. So just psychologically, you need to find a way to think positively about it. And so that's what I did. I just grabbed it and said, well, I'll just tell people about it and make some money that way.
Certainly
You
beats alternatives that you did a lot of work to record all of those utterances,
Yes.
and it's probably, I would imagine, gratifying that work wasn't just like put in a corner that no one noticed. It
Yeah.
happened to
Yeah.
enter onto a worldwide stage. And so at least that work that you did is being, well received and was received by, probably hundreds of millions of people. So
Yeah.
there is that for what
Yeah.
that's. I also didn't get, paid by the number of people using or consuming Siri.
Right. Right.
So that would have
Yeah.
been nice.
some things, as I said, over which you have no control, you just kind of have to let them go,
Yeah,
and just take the positive out of it and just move on.
I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, Susan, you talked a little bit about like how your life changed after this came out. Can you just like touch on the moment that you found out you were Siri, and then how that transformed what you were doing at the time?
Well, I think I mentioned that a fellow voice actor emailed me
Mm-hmm.
after he'd gotten the iPhone 4S, and he said, "I think this is you." And so I went on the website, the Apple website, and listened, and I said, "Yes, that's me." Now what? Yeah. So, well, as I said, it was kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, on the one hand, I was very flattered to have my voice chosen, but it was kind of unfair as well to not be
Mm-hmm.
compensated.
Mm-hmm.
I like to tell anybody who's ever talked to Siri, please send me $1. That should do it.
So, Adam, what about you? Like, how did your life start to change after, I mean, I think you talked last time about like 30, it was like 30 days of Steve Jobs calling you, and then you acquiesced and said, "Hey, I'll let you take this away from me." And how did that kind of impact you once Siri became big?
Yeah, so Siri was certainly my first success in any way, and not only so there were two chapters. One, we were a startup, and we had launched a free app. I'm very proud of the fact that Steve Wozniak, the other co-founder of Apple, he's not only the co-founder, he tries every Apple product and he tells you what he thinks.
I've
And
met him. I was on the stage with him. Yeah, no, he's
yeah,
just a great guy, really great guy.
great guy. And
Yes,
he goes on speaking tours,
yes,
and
yeah,
he will often say, if you ask him, what is your favorite app of all time? Like there are millions of apps. He will say Siri, but
yeah,
the original Siri that was the startup, not the one that was embedded in the app, that was my favorite because it did so much. So I'm so proud of that work. We launched the app. People liked it. It was, I think, somewhat of a game changer. And enough
absolutely.
that 2 weeks later, Steve Jobs called our office and said, please come over to our house, my house. The three co-founders, Doug Kitlaus, Tom Gruber, and myself went. We talked for 3 hours. He said, at the end, he said, I want to buy your company, which is, as an entrepreneur and really a first-time entrepreneur, very flattering. We did say, thank you, not interested, goodbye. It was not our intention to sell our company. We had signed this huge distribution deal. We had plans. We were going to be big, not just on the iPhone, but on every phone. So we had Siri running on Blackberries, Siri running on Androids. We were going to be everywhere. But he did call us 30 days in a row. He was nothing if not persistent.
Yes,
Eventually convinced us that he understood the vision and would support the vision, the full vision, and that we could change the world more with Apple than without. So then we joined. It was April 2010. We worked for about 18 months. We got about 9 good months of Steve Jobs, where he was incredibly focused on Siri, every detail, everything, including, I'm sure, the voice. That was all him, really not making the decisions, but having the final word on every detail. The second 9 months, he was pretty sick.
hmm
As you know, Siri launched October 4th, 2011. Steve Jobs died the very next day.
yes, I
And
remember that.
his admin wrote to me and said, I've been meaning to tell you this for a decade. Steve was watching the launch of Siri, and in fact, he was clinging on to life to be able to see that launch.
Oh,
Siri
wow.
was so important to him. I really think of it as his gift, last
hmm
gift to the world. And you could argue he's revolutionized so many fields, right?
hmm
Pixar and movies, obviously the mouse and Windows with the Mac in the early days, just everything, mobile, music. You could argue that Steve Jobs saw the coming wave of AI before anyone else did.
Mm-hmm.
Because after he acquired Siri, he went on stage with Walt Mossberg at the All Things Digital conference. And Walt said, "Why did you buy Siri, that search company?" He said, "They're not a search company. They're an AI company." And no one knew what he meant. This was 2010.
Mm.
The words artificial intelligence hadn't been uttered in mainstream business for
Right.
2 decades. In the 80s, it was a thing. 90s and 2000s, not at all. And so he said, they're not a search company, they're an AI company. He held on to launch Siri. And now, looking back from our vantage point, the 2010s were all about AI, not only the voice AIs of Alexa and Cortana and Google Assistant, but self-driving cars, deep learning, all the way leading up to where we are today, where conversational AI is all about, is the rage. You could argue he was the first to see it and really bring it to the masses and really set the stage for the world to accept everything else. So I think, Susan with her voice, really being the first commercial voice to introduce to people this new paradigm of what working with a computer might be like. I mean, Steve Jobs saw that and was right. I was wrong at that time. And here we are today.
Mm-hmm.
I thought what Susan did so well was it was like a relatable voice. It wasn't a computerized voice. And like that was a big game changer at that point, because you were so used to like this concept of what a computer would sound like, but it sounded like a human and much more like a human. Were you thinking about that at all, Susan? Like, or anything? Was there any prompts or hints given to you when you were recording at the time of like how the kind of direction you should talk or anything like that? Did you have any insights into how this would be used?
Well, because I was basically recording a voice bank, and I was reading lots of different unusual sentences with different sound combinations. My job was to be as consistent as possible and to be as unemotional as possible, not so much up and down in the conversation, keeping it as monotone as possible, monotone without being boring. That's possible. And so it was an interesting experience. It was hard work, and I was doing about, I think, 4 hours a day. I finally got them down to 2 hours a day because I said, this is making me nutty. It was a lot of work, which I appreciate.
It was over a couple months. Took you a couple months to do it.
Yeah.
And the whole time you didn't know.
I didn't know about Siri. No, I knew that I was just kind of voicing a voice bank voice. People were going to be utilizing that voice for different things. And at the time, this was we're talking over 20 years ago that I did the recordings. So at that time, those of us not involved in the tech area, of all of this, we had no idea what was going to become of those voices. We had no idea it was going to become this amazing persona.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about it. So you must have recorded this in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Siri didn't actually come out until 2011. So some years later, which helps explain the distance. Never really thought about the timing of it. So very interesting.
That's significantly before. It's like way before.
Sorry?
That's significantly before. I mean.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot. It's a big difference.
10 plus years. Yeah.
So someday you should meet a man named Harry Sadler, who I think would be the best person to credit for the words, those phrases that were put into Susan's, that were voiced by Susan. So when it would respond and say, "I'm talking to you," Susan was the voice, but somehow who had to come up with the actual personality and the words and those little snarky comebacks or surprise.
She's not as snarky now. She's younger and she's not as snarky.
Yeah, well, Harry Sadler no longer works at Apple, so
okay.
He retired. So I attribute some of that. But he was the original. I won't say the original voice, but he was the original copywriter for those things. And we had given him a task. So at the time, Siri was not about all the humor. It was about getting functions done.
Right.
And so we had all of the domains, the different apps, so sports and reminders and weather, etc. But we knew that by using a conversational metaphor, it gave liberty to add a little bit of what we call surprise and delight. And we said, Harry, we want you to sprinkle in delight nuggets throughout the conversation. So if you said, Siri, what's the weather tomorrow? It'll say it'll be 62 degrees and rainy. Pause. Don't forget your galoshes. And it would be like, it would go just one step past what you were expecting, and it would put on a smile.
Right.
So originally, the idea was to just do the functional domains, but make them engaging and fun and
making them more human.
And so he went through those and did that. But then he came across all of the handlers that I had built, because I knew people wouldn't always stick to the functional domains. So they would, in addition to what's the weather and set a timer, they might say, Siri, what are you wearing? Or Siri, what color are your eyes? Or Siri. So Harry and team, all of us, had to define a backstory. We had to define who is Siri. Is Siri male or female, human or AI or something else? Is Siri an employee of Apple? Or a fan boy or girl, or like and in order to have all of these responses, you needed a consistent backstory. And Harry kind of defined that. Who is Siri? What's the attitude? What's the personality? What's the backstory? We also introduced clues in the backstory to responses. So at the time, if you said, Siri, what's your favorite color? It would give clues about some of those questions. Is Siri an AI or human or alien, or what is the story? And so by
a combination of all three.
Yes, absolutely. So by asking different questions, you could start to piece together the full mystery of who is Siri. And Harry Sadler was the person to really lead that effort and really bring that engagement that, when voiced properly, was the perfect personality, because you had the voice, but you also had the right words, the right things to engage with people.
And humor.
Yes, and humor. And kind of intelligent humor, right?
Yes.
It was, Siri, in my view, comes across as, not too subservient, not too passive, not too dumb. Like, she's a smart, she's helpful, she's friendly, but
watch what you tell her.
Right. She's got something going on. That's perfect.
Susan, what were your favorite phrases? Like, were there any that you really just loved hearing from Siri or love recording?
Well, as I said, the recordings that I did were nonsensical.
Right.
So, I can't really have a nonsensical favorite phrase. Cow hoist in the tub hut today is kind of a winner. Or schist fresh issue today is another good one. You can imagine saying those things for 4 hours a day. And, and I think I had some brain damage from it.
The ones that did come out, I meant, what were your favorite there?
Oh, I don't have one. I mean, I don't have a favorite phrase. And I don't really talk to Siri.
That would be weird anyway.
Yes, it's very weird.
It's like talking to a mirror.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, now is kind of, you guys are both doing different things. I'd love for you guys to touch on what you're up to now. Susan, what are you up to at this point?
What I'm up to is I do some Siri speaker work, telling people about, Siri. And that's been kind of cool, because I've been to Australia, I've been to Croatia, been to a lot of different cities in the US, just talking about Siri, because it was amazing to realize the number of people that didn't realize there was a human behind the voice. And I'm thinking, well, where did you think they got that sound? Anyway, so they love hearing the story of Siri and how it happened. And it was, for me, it seemed accidental. But it was, it ended up being very fortuitous. I mean, it's been a really fun thing for me.
What are you up to, Adam? What are you doing now?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I like to think big thoughts, start companies, build them out, and then hopefully sell them to a bigger company and get them out to billions of people. I was the first developer at change.org, which is the world's largest petition platform, more than 500 million members. Siri, my next after Siri was Viv Labs, which sold to Samsung. So it was Samsung's voice assistant on about 500 million devices. My last company was called Game Planner AI, completely stealth and secret. We didn't come out, there was no trace of the product. And then, much like when Steve Jobs called our office, Brian Chesky from Airbnb ferreted us out and gave us a pitch that convinced me to change direction, and we joined him at Airbnb. My role is now VP of AI Experience at Airbnb, and I can't really speak about all the wondrous secret things we're working on there, but I will give one clue. When I talked with Brian, I said, well, what do you want to do with AI anyway? And I was expecting him to say, I want to use the algorithms to optimize sales of our product. But instead he said, I want to connect people in the real world. I want to cure loneliness. And I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
Exactly. That's what I said. Oh, wow. And so for me, Airbnb is exciting because they're more than just a home selling platform, or they aspire to be more. And over time, I realized everything I'm interested in, Siri-like AI systems that work with a person to achieve tasks, collaborative systems where people work together to make a decision. At Airbnb, 80% of Airbnbs have multiple adults, and more than the majority have 3 or more adults. So it's a collective decision-making problem to say, where are we going to invest our money to go on vacation?
Mhm.
So I'm very interested in the space. Travel is very rich. I love the company and the people. Brian has big vision and strong values, and those are things that are really important to me at this point in my career. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Very exciting. I mean, also it's a great way to make AI, in the real world. Like we see a lot of this stuff digitally, but physical world, there's so much the AI can do, and I'm definitely excited to see what you'll accomplish at Airbnb, Adam. Appreciate you guys taking the time and doing this. You've had a huge contribution to the world we're seeing today. So many people have benefited from both of the work that you guys have done, and I'm sure that that's going to continue to be the way going forward through your contribution, Susan, in voice acting, and Adam, you and technology. So wishing you guys much success, and thanks for doing this.
And same to you.
Yeah,
Success to you.
Thanks.
thank you, Ben, and nice meeting you, Susan.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too, Adam.